Hello, this is Daniel Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide, and this is day 3 of the IAE, which makes it Drake Day. And Drake this year has 2 new ships. However, neither of them really impressed me as Drake ships. I look at both of them and I think maybe they should have been better as a different manufacturer. And I'll be getting into them in a moment. And I'm doing this a bit extemporaneously, so if this one will not be quite as polished as some of my scripted videos, but I'm doing it so I can get a little bit out earlier. I have a trip planned this weekend. And here we are at the Drake Hall, and going to be taking a look at 2 ships. The first is around to the left, and this is the Drake Golem, which we have just learned will have a ship value of $90, $80 war bond, which puts it exactly at the same price as the Hull A, except, this is an important thing to understand, CIG has said the Hull A will no longer be, after this sale, still available at its existing price. There will be a new price, presumably, of course, a higher price after the show. But I look at this and I say, why isn't this a Argo ship? It really has all the vibes and quite a bit of the look of a micro version of the Raft, or a larger version of the Argo tractor. It has the same underslung cargo. This will hold 64 SCU. And a while back, I did a concept video. I made it a mist ship, but a concept video of what I called 64 in a matchbox, or 64 on a postage stamp, I believe. And the idea was a ship for doing carrier onboard delivery, a ship that could fit into a hangar bay on a Polaris, or into a Hull C, or into the flight deck of an Idris, unload right from there, load right from there, and then be able to fly right out. The kind of role that is currently played by the in the Navy by the C-1 Greyhound or Osprey. This notion of carrier onboard delivery. So it'd be a way that you could bring things to the carrier and take them off the carrier without having to do a lot of transloading across tractor beams with the ship parked outside. You can bring it aboard and actually land it. And this ship does a superb job of that. And in fact, other than the price, I don't see any reason at all to buy this ship instead of a Hull A, because it has the same capacity as a Hull A, at least for this show, the same price as a Hull A. A lot more the Hull A has in terms of creature comforts and in general workability. One of the problems of this ship show, here's a view from that tractor beam. As you see, very reminiscent of the Argo Raft. So it really is, if you think of this as a micro raft, you have the concept of this ship down fully. Except the Raft has a very comfortable living space, and this does not. And the Hull A has a very comfortable living space and engineering space, and this does not. So let me hop out here, and I'll get to one of the most troublesome facts about the Golem Ox. And it's actually something it shares with the Golem mining version. Let me come back here. Hello, the same guy we're seeing on the tractor beam. And see, here is the cargo bay. It can hold 232 SCU containers, so very similar to the mist concept I came up with a while back. But let's go forward, and we'll see if you can figure out the flaw here, looking around a little bit more. So now we're directly behind the cockpit here, and there's a panel here labeled engineering. In fact, there are no fewer than 3 panels labeled actually 4 panels labeled engineering. So this one is right behind the cockpit. It looks like we have, here's where the fuse box is. So if you have to change a fuse, you have to exit the ship, come over here, and change the fuse here. But there's other engineering components here as well. I think that's avionics and radar, all of which directly behind the cockpit. I come over to the starboard side of the ship, and here's another panel where we find the power plant. And I come over to the port side, and there's two buttons. One here opens up this. Let me get a good view of it here. This is the cooler, I believe. And the third button over here, the fourth panel, has this drop-down area where we have the shields. Let me close this up. Now, have you noticed what is going to be the really serious problem with this? And that is that in order to do work on any of the engineering components, you not only have to exit the ship, but you have to unload all the cargo, because the cargo will be blocking all of these panels. And imagine having to do that in the middle of a trip because there's been a failure or it was damaged by in a firefight. You're super vulnerable and super annoying. This is probably, this and its sister ship, the Golem, are some of the worst ships to work with in terms of the new engineering system. Not because it doesn't have them, but because you have to unload all of them. And it doesn't have to be so. If you look at this front area, there's plenty of space to put those same components in kind of a saddlebag arrangement on the outside of the ship. Now we're going to go with the other ship of Drake for this year, and it is $135 war bond, $150, and that's this ugly duckling called the Clipper. And my question here is that this looks to me more like what it ought to be the second of the Gray's Market ships, because it is just put together in such a slapdash fashion. Certainly, Drake has its industrial, raw aesthetics, but their ships actually work like someone has put a lot of thought behind them. In the introductory video of this from CIG, they said they changed it very little from the concept art, and that to me was a red flag, because that period in between is where you do your functional design. And even though this has its own cute ugly duckling aesthetic, and I actually find that sort of endearing as well, functionally I think this ship is going to drive you bananas after a while, because so many things weren't thought through in terms of function. And here we see one of them right at the start. The lift blocks the ramp. And so if you're trying to go up and down and other people are trying to get in and out through the ramp or get something in and out through the ramp, the one is going to be in the way of the other. And then the other thing here is as we come up the ramp is too narrow for the cargo bay. So the cargo bay could handle an 8 SCU box or 4 SCU boxes, but you can't get them up the ramp. Now, if instead they had switched this around, moved the cargo area forward, move the landing gear optionally forward some too, and then have the ramp be a shorter bent ramp, one with a hinge in the middle, put it at the back, and now you would have a much more functional cargo ramp, one that wouldn't block the elevator or the elevator block the ramp, and one which you could get the full width into the Clipper. And you could possibly then put a small buggy in here. In addition, the ladder is on the back wall of this ship, and we'll get into more of that there. Now let's take this lift up. Imagine you're coming into the ship for the first time. You have to take the lift up only to the middle floor, to the second floor. Doesn't go to the first floor. Then you have to come out, then go to this stair, and take the stair to the third floor in order to get to your seat. So you'll be having to do that every single time you get in or get out of this craft. A two-step process, where, except for a very large ship, it would be a one-step process, such as on the Cutter or on the Cutlass, or really pretty much any other single-person ship. Now, all the way here to the back of the third floor, the two-story engineering area, and the trap door. And again, to get to the top floor of the engineering area, you have to go up the ladder in the back of the cargo area, then go, and here's the, but if they had just moved the ladder to the side wall instead of the top wall. They could have had this ladder go all the way up to all 3 floors. But they didn't. And it's kind of frustrating. One of those little things that a little more attention to functional design would have been very useful. And then you wouldn't have to necessarily have this trapdoor situation here. Or put a lift in the back that will go to all 3 floors. Again, that could have been done here in this engineering area. Just a little more attention to the functional design over the aesthetic design could have made this a much more useful ship while keeping the same overall exterior profile. It would have been so easy to have a ladder that went to all 3 floors in the back and a ladder or a lift that went to all 3 floors in the front. And the lack of that is just going to become, over time, quite annoying. Particularly since this is a ship that's significantly more expensive than, for example, a Cutlass Red. Definitely more expensive. It's same price, I believe, as a Cutlass Red. More expensive than a Cutlass Black. Both of which do excellent jobs as all-arounders. Here in the medical room, they could have moved this big box here that has the med gel and other stuff to the sidewall, and then put the medical console at the foot of the bed, just like it is on the Cutlass Red bed, which are also Tier 3 beds. This big bulky thing here doesn't seem to be serving much purpose other than taking up space and holding a fire extinguisher. Now, I suspect a lot of people will be buying this because they're going to falsely believe that this is going to be the only way of getting crafting. But as you may have noticed between the lines in their discussion of this ship, they were saying you could, with other ships, have a movable crafting bench that you can put on a cargo grid somewhere. But even this, how do you get raw materials, say the weapon you're going to be modifying, up to here without either having to try to carry it up a ladder, which is going to be difficult, or carrying it outside the ship, putting it on the lift, and then taking it up on the lift. And then once you're done crafting it and you want to put it back in the hole, how do you get it there? You either have to kind of like drop it down one of the hatches, the trap doors, or you're taking it all the way to the front, down the lift, opening up the cargo ramp, and then carrying it in to put it in the storage space for the ship. There is no link here to get to the ship's internal storage, your personal storage. In fact, I didn't find a link to do that anywhere, but there's definitely no way to pull items from your personal storage here where you would probably trying to use them on the crafting bench. A lot of little things like this. And which is kind of why this thing, to me, feels like it ought to be a Gray's Market ship, because it's just put together in such a haphazard way. And although Drake has its aesthetics, its actual functioning is well put together. Things are where they belong. You move from place to place. The 3 sections of the Cutlass Red are very well thought out in terms of how you secure and move from one to the other. So we have the med bed up here, but if you're really injured, how are you getting up here? How are you climbing ladders while still injured? Or if you're trying to bring a friend aboard who's injured, you have to squeeze yourself and them onto this little lift, which only goes up to the middle floor. A little bit of a change in the configuration here, and they could have had this same lift go up to all 3 floors. But they didn't spend enough time between the concept art and the finished product thinking about the functional analysis. And good design in what's called the design development phase does that. It thinks about how you're going to use this, what's the paths you're going to flow through your structure. How do you get from here to there? How do you get your materials from here to there? How do you get the finished product from here to there? And this is going to be a ship I believe you'll find fun for a while, but as a daily driver, you're going to get tired at how inconvenient everything is. And I really actually do love its visual aesthetic. but a well-designed thing has a visual aesthetic and a functional aesthetic. And the functional aesthetic on this ship should have had a lot more work. I know, I'm going to probably get a lot of Drake lovers in the comments saying, but I like this ship, it looks pretty. It isn't a matter of how it looks, it's a question of how it functions. A good ship does both. And right now, as an all-arounder, I really couldn't see someone living with this and its inconvenience for a long time, when for less money they could get a Cutlass Red or a Cutlass Black, or put a crafting bay in their cutter. It's a cute and fun visual thing. I don't see it being a fun thing to live with for a long time. And that's a quick look at the at Drake's two offerings. I actually, from a functional standpoint, I like the Golem Ox better because it is going to fulfill a real role in terms of being a carrier onboard delivery. You should think of it as almost like a cargo snub. It's the way in which you will be getting things to and from your Idris and your Polaris, and although you probably won't be able to close the door, you could fit it on a few other ships if you're going to be using really pretty much any other large ship that you're going to be using as your mobile base for doing industrial or patrol or whatever. As we get more of these large ships that are designed and intended for long-term deployment, having a way to do carrier onboard delivery is going to be useful. So I regard the Golem Ox as a much more useful ship. Just in all honesty, though, what the Golem Ox mostly tells me is to pick up the Hull A at its current show price, because it's going to be going up, and the Hull A clearly, if you're really making a cargo career, is the best foundational ship. You've heard me probably in other videos talk about stepping stone ships and foundational ships. For a cargo hauler, unless you're needing to do carrier onboard delivery as part of a big org fleet operation, if you're just looking at doing a cargo career, you'll probably find the Ox to be a stepping stone ship. The Hull A more is likely going to be a foundational ship if you're going for a cargo career. Something that you will always be wanting to return to when you have small cargo loads to do, when you have small missions to do. Because it has all of the convenience features and the workability features of having internal access to your engineering components, not having to unload your cargo to get at your engineering components, having the bed, having the kitchen, all those other things. The Hull A is more likely going to be a foundational ship, particularly at its current price. Get us to our giveaways. I'm getting ready to do the giveaway of the Starlancer Max, and this video will qualify for all of next year's giveaways, including the ILW giveaway and the IAE giveaway. One entry per video. Members, you're going to be qualified for all of the giveaways automatically. Everyone else just comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is who I think should have released the Clipper. File safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond with Ray's Guide.